Hello, friends. We meet again with the 10th chapter of this book, which is The Adjutant Bird. The tall, long legged adjutant bird lived with his wife on the island of Borneo. One day, while his wife was out flying, he fell asleep near their nest. What does this mean is there was a tall bird with long legs called the adjutant bird, and he lived with his wife on an island named Borneo. One day, while his wife went out to fly, he took a nap near their nest. On his back, his sleek grey feathers were neatly arranged, and the white feathers on his front were only occasionally ruffled by the warm breeze. What does this mean is on his back, the bird had shiny, smooth grey feathers. The feathers on the front of his body were white, and sometimes the wind made his feathers a little messy. Ruffled as messy. While he was sleeping, a family of monkeys, 9 of them, came stealing down from the trees. They saw the adjutant bird sleeping peacefully and started to comment on his appearance. What happened is, while the bird was sleeping, a group of 9 monkeys came quietly from the trees. They saw the bird sleeping peacefully. They began talking about how he looked, about his appearance, how he looked. The bird was deeply asleep and did not hear them. The monkeys pushed and shoved each other closer and closer to the adjutant bird. They were bored, and just to amuse themselves, they dared each other and pulled out all the tall bird's feathers. Then they rolled around, hooting and laughing at him. What does these lines mean? It says the bird was sleeping so deeply that he didn't hear the monkeys. The naughty monkeys pushed each other closer to him. They were bored and wanted to have fun, so they started pulling out the bird's feathers. Then they rolled around, making noise and laughing. They were so noisy that the adjutant bird woke up. The monkeys pointed at him and laughed at him because they thought he looked peculiar. What does this mean is the monkeys made so much noise that the bird woke up. They pointed at him and laughed because he looked strange without his feathers. Peculiar is look strange without his feathers because they pulled out all his feathers. The adjutant bird stretched his wings as if to fly off, but found that he could not do so. Then the adjutant bird began to cry aloud. What was he to do now? Without his feathers, he could no longer fly in search of food. What does this mean is the bird tried to spread his wings to fly away, but he couldn't because he had no feathers left. He became very sad and started crying because he couldn't even fly to search for food again. After a time, his wife came back. She was sorry for him, brought him food, and asked him how in the world he had lost his feathers. What happened is, after some time, his wife returned. She felt sorry for him. She gave him food and asked how he lost all his feathers. The adjutant bird told her how these horrible monkeys had come while he was asleep and plucked them all out, and how when he woke they had laughed because he looked so funny. The bird told his wife everything, how the monkeys came while he was sleeping and plucked his feathers, and how they laughed at him. The adjutant bird's wife said, "Don't worry, my dear. I will take care of you until you grow new feathers." So, what she said is, his wife comforted him. She said, "Don't worry, I will take care of you until your feathers grow again." After about 2 months, the adjutant bird was able to fly, for his wing feathers had grown again. All this time, while his feathers were growing, he had thought and thought about some way in which he could get better of those monkeys. After around 2 months, the bird's wings feathers grew back, and then he was able to fly again. All this time, while waiting for his feathers to grow, he thought about while waiting for his feathers to grow, he kept thinking about something he wanted to do to those monkeys. His feelings had been very much hurt, and he wanted to make quite sure that the monkeys would never do such a thing again. But think as he would, he could decide on nothing. What happened is the bird felt very sad because the monkeys had been mean to him. He wanted to think of a way to stop them from doing such bad things again. But no matter how much he thought, he couldn't come up with any good idea. Then one day, when he was walking about near the river, he met Bobog, the tortoise. He told Bobog how those horrible monkeys had stolen all his feathers and how his feelings had been hurt because they had laughed at him and he hadn't been able to fly for 2 months, and if it hadn't been for his wife, he would have died. What this paragraph means is one day while walking near the river, the bird met a tortoise named Bobog. He told Bobog about what the monkeys did, how they pulled out all his feathers, laughed at him, and hurt his feelings. He also said that he couldn't fly for 2 months, and if his wife had not been there to take care of him, he might not have survived. Bobog was also angry with the monkeys because they would often jump on his back and dance about, laughing at Bobog's slow walk. They knew he could not shake them off or stop them. I will help you, said Bobog. He had thought of a plan to teach the monkeys a lesson. But first, you must go and hunt for a boat. What happened here is Bobog the tortoise was also upset with the monkeys because they would jump on his back and tease him. They laughed at him because he walked slowly. He could never chase them away. So Bobog said he wanted to help the adjutant bird and to teach the monkeys a lesson. And he said, the bird, that he had an idea to teach the monkeys a lesson, but first the bird needed to find a boat. What's the use of that? Said the adjutant bird in surprise. I am not clever at rowing. Or the bird was confused. He asked why he needed a boat because he did not know how to row one. Never you mind, said Bobog. What you must do is to find a boat with a hole in it. The hole must be right size for me. What Bobog said is Bobog told him not to worry. The bird only needed to find a boat with a hole in it. The hole should be just the right size for Bobog the tortoise. It should be the size of the tortoise. So the adjutant bird agreed that he and Bobog should meet again in 7 days. The bird agreed to follow the plan. He and Bobog decided to meet again in 7 days after finding the right boat. Adjutant Bird at once set out to look for a boat with the right sized hole in it. There were lots of old boats lying about, and he was not long in finding one. What this paragraph means is the adjutant bird quickly started searching for a boat that had a hole big enough for Bobog. There were many old boats around, so he found one without much trouble. After 7 days, he and Bobog met at the place where the boat was lying. Then Bobog crept into the hole so that the water could not get in any more. The people who were standing about helped to push the boat out from the shore, and she started away downstream with the adjutant bird standing up in her. What these lines means is after a week the bird and the Bobog met at the place where the boat was kept. Bobog crawled into the hole so the water wouldn't come in. And some people nearby helped push the boat into the river. Then it started floating away. with the adjutant bird standing inside it. Presently, five monkeys, who were sitting in a row on a branch of a tree, spied the boat, and one of them called out, "Adjutant Bird, where are you going?" "Just for a nice trip," he said. "May we come with you, you splendid bird?" the monkeys asked. What these paragraphs mean is, soon five monkeys sitting on a tree branch saw the boat. One of them shouted to the adjutant bird that asked the bird where he was going. He said he was just taking a trip. They asked politely if they could join him because they thought he was a wonderful bird. Certainly, he answered politely. He had recognized them. They were five of the monkeys who had so cruelly pulled out his feathers and mocked him. What happened is, the bird said yes politely. He recognized them. They were the same five monkeys who had been cruel to him before and pulled out his feathers. Okay? These five monkeys scrambled, chattering into the boat. They then, while they were enjoying themselves, drifting in the boat, another monkey, also one of the feather pullers, called from another tree, and he and three others of that were very same family dropped into the boat of their branch. What happened? The five monkeys excitedly jumped into the boat while they were having fun, and the monkeys, who had also put the bird's feathers, called from another tree. He and three other monkeys from the same naughty group also jumped into the boat. Then, when a lot of other monkeys saw these nine having such a pleasant boat trip, they wanted to get in too, but the adjutant bird would not have them on board. What he said was that more would overload the boat, but the real reason was that he only wanted the nine who had pulled out his feathers and laughed. What happened is, when other monkeys saw the fun boat ride, they also wanted to join, but the bird did not allow them. He said the boat would become too heavy. But the real reason was, he only wanted the nine monkeys who had hurt him before, so that he could teach them a lesson. The boat drifted out from the river into the sea, and waves began to rock her. The adjutant bird pretended there was danger, and told the monkeys to tie their tails together, two and two, saying that five small ones must sit on one side of the boat and four opposite, so that she should not roll so much. The monkeys tied their tails together and sat just as he said. They very much wanted to stop this rolling, for they were frightened. What happened is, the boat floated out into the sea and the waves began to shake it. The bird pretended there was danger and told the monkeys to tie their tails together, five on one side of the boat and four on the other, to stop the boat from shaking. The monkeys were scared, so they obeyed. And they were all neatly arranged like this, with their tails tied. The adjutant bird called, "Bobog, can you hear me? I am going to fly off now." "Yes, I hear you," answered Bobog. "I will swim off too." What happened is, once the monkeys were sitting with their tied tails, the adjutant bird called out to Bobog inside the boat. He said he was going to fly away now. Bobog replied that he was ready to. He would swim away. So the adjutant bird flew up, and the tortoise popped down out of the hole and into the water. And then, of course, the water rushed in through the hole, and the boat began to sink. What happened is, the adjutant bird flew away into the sky, and Bobog the tortoise slipped out of the hole in the boat and dropped into the water. Then water rushed into the hole, and the boat started to sink. The monkeys tried to swim, which they could usually do quite well, but their tails were tied together, so they had a dreadful time of it. In fact, they only just managed to get ashore, some half drowned and all very much frightened and miserable. What happened is, the monkeys tried to swim, and normally they were very good at swimming, but now Their tails were tied together, so swimming was difficult for them. They struggled, half drowned, and finally managed to reach the shore. They were scared and tired and very unhappy. As for the adjutant bird, as he flew away, he shouted out, "Now, you horrible monkeys, see what you get for pulling out my feathers and laughing." What this paragraph means is, as the adjutant bird flew away, he shouted to the monkeys, "Now, you bad monkeys, this is what you get for pulling out my feathers and for laughing at me." From that day onwards, the monkeys did not bother the adjutant bird or the tortoise. They carried on being noisy and lively, but did not play tricks on or upset the other animals. After that incident, the monkeys stopped troubling the adjutant bird and the tortoise. They were still noisy and full of energy, but they no longer played tricks or hurt other animals. It was a traditional tale retold by Amabel Williams Ellis. Okay, we'll meet again in the next session for the question answers. So do like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Bye. Thank you.